All right, welcome to our next lesson on adding decimals and like fractions, so fractions with the same denominator. This is kind of our next step now that we've kind of gotten a handle on how to add integers together, our positives and negatives. Now we're going to apply those to different types of numbers. So you've got your notes out. We're going to start with a quick review of our rules for adding integers, and then we're going to go right into using them for decimals and then with fractions. So first we're going to start with our rules again. So think of our song. Okay, I know everybody loves it so much. If your numbers have the same signs, you're just going to add them together and keep the sign. Same signs, add and keep. Okay. If they're both positive, they stay positive when you add them together. If they're both negative, they just become a bigger negative number. If they have different signs, this is when we're going to subtract. Think of them as battling the positives versus the negatives. And take the sign of the larger number. Okay? If the negative number is a larger number versus the positive, then we know the sign is going to stay negative. You're going to treat your decimals and fractions the exact same way. You're going to have that same conversation with yourself. Are they the same signs? All right, I'm going to add them together, keep the sign. Are they different signs? All right, I'm going to subtract. We treat them the exact same way. We're just a little more careful with our decimals and fractions. So for our decimals, here's the one key. Think back to when you talked about this in elementary school or in 6th grade. For decimals, remember to always line up the decimal point and the numbers to set up the problem. Okay? So you're still going to add them or subtract them, but make sure that decimal point gets lined up. So for instance here, 7.35 plus negative 3.77. They have different signs, so we know we have to subtract. We always put the larger number. In this case, the 7.35 is larger than 3.77. You line up that decimal point, and then you go ahead and subtract. Okay, you may be a little rusty with your borrowing. I can't do 5 minus 7, so I come over and borrow. 15 minus 7 is 8. Can't do 2 minus 7, so I have to come over here and borrow and make it a 12. That gives me a 5. Decimal slides down, and 3. So different signs, subtract, take the sign of the higher number. The positive was higher, so it's going to be a positive 3.58. Next one. They're both the same signs, so we're simply going to add them together. When we're adding, it doesn't matter which number is on top, because we're just going to be adding them together. But we are going to line up that decimal point. So for my second number, I'm going to have to add that extra 0. Same signs, add them together. 7 and 0 is 7, 8, 10, 14, and a 2. Don't forget to bring down that decimal. So same signs, add and keep the sign. So don't forget to go back and put that sign on your answer when you're all done. Well, you line up your decimal points, decide if you're going to add or subtract, and go from there. So here, negative 18 plus 4.33. Again, they have different signs, so we're going to have to subtract. Put the larger number on top. 18 is bigger than 4, so I'm going to put the 18 on top and the 4 on the bottom. Remember, in a whole number, the decimal is right at the end of the number, and then we can kick in those extra zeros. They had different signs, so we subtract. Here I'm going to have to do a little borrowing. Then I can borrow from the 10 to make it a 9, and make that into a 10. 10 minus 3 is 7, 9 minus 3 is 6. Decimal slides down. 7 minus 4 is 3, and 1 minus 0 is 0. Or sorry, 1 minus 1 is 1. Take the sign of the higher number. 18 is bigger than 4, so we know it's going to be a negative. So same rules as with regular integers, we just have to do a little bit more work in the actual addition or subtraction. Same thing with fractions, and for today we're focusing on just ones with a common denominator, a like denominator. So with fractions, the numerators are what you add or subtract. So the negative sign goes with those numerators. Okay? So for instance, with this negative here, I'm going to think of it as the 3 is a negative, or here the 4 and the 5 are really the negative, because it's the numerators that are the parts that we actually add or subtract. And then don't forget to simplify your answers. It's a fraction problem. We always make sure our answers are in simplest form. But again, focus on your numerators and use your rules. They have the same signs, so I'm going to add them together and keep the sign. 9 plus 3 is 12 sixteenths. And then I always look to see if I can simplify. 12 and 16 can each be divided by 4. And I get an answer of 3/4. And then keep the sign. They were both positive, so it stays positive. Next one, negative 3/7 plus 1/7. Again, focus on your numerators. The denominator is going to stay the same. They have different signs, so I'm going to subtract. 3 minus 1 is 2. Take the sign of the higher number. 3 is higher than 1, so it's going to stay negative. So negative 2/7. 2/7 can't be simplified, so I'm done. Next one. Negative 4/6 plus negative 5/6. So focus on your numerators. That's the part that's doing the adding or subtracting. A negative plus a negative. Same signs, add them together and keep the sign. Denominator stays the same. And then we simplify. 9 and 6 can each be divided by 3. So I get negative 3/2. And then that's still an improper fraction, so I'm going to make it into a mixed number. That negative is just going to go with the whole thing. The whole fraction is negative, whether it's an improper fraction or mixed number. 3/2, 2 goes into 3 one time with 1 left over. So our answer is negative 3/2 or negative 1 1/2. That negative goes with both the whole number and the fraction. All right, good luck.